Hey, thanks everybody for joining the ReBiz webinar today. Hope you had a great Halloween. I didn't have as much snow as Chris, 10 inches. Oof. And that was griping about, yeah, that's pretty brutal. Sorry to hear about that. I'm Adam Hood from the IQ Partner Management team. Hopefully you had a chance to recently attend the IQ Industry Address where we discuss top industry trends, wireline cable codes gobbling up the market, drop in demand, longer buying cycles, labor shortages, really highlighting it's more important now than ever to make informed decisions, reduce costs, and increase revenue. So I'm very excited to introduce the presenters from ReBiz today. We have Tony, head of wireless accounts, and Chris Hogan, the president of ReBiz. Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to the ReBiz team.
Perfect. I'll take things to start here. Appreciate those kind words, Adam. And I think a lot of what you guys talked about on the industry address kind of goes hand in hand with, what we do here. So, to kind of kick things off, guys, my name's Tony. I'm part of the sales and support team here. And hopefully today we can provide you guys some value with some different solutions that are out there in the market that a lot of your peers are using to see some positive results and ROI out there with their sales. To kind of start, I want to do some introductions as to a quick history of who we are. Our entire executive team and leadership team here at ReBiz, we come from decades of wireless experience. We've owned and operated hundreds of wireless stores throughout the years. And very early on in our venture, we realized we had a big problem. And that problem was, as we were growing and scaling, we were losing visibility into what was going on in our stores. When we had, 2, 3, 4 locations, we were able to be very intimate with our stores. We were able to be in our stores, visit our stores multiple times a week. We knew all the employees on a first name basis. We knew our customers. We knew when the stores were busy, when the stores were slow. But after you get to a certain amount of locations, you just don't have that type of visibility. And this resulted in very poor decision making on our part. And this poor decision making resulted in loss of sales, loss of revenue, more stress, less effective business. And we had to solve this problem if we wanted to continue to grow and scale at the rate that we were expected to. So we went through an exercise where we went out in the market and we tried to find a solution. We tested several different types of products, different traffic counters, different loss prevention tools, different types of camera systems. And we quickly realized there just wasn't anything in the market that kind of gave us what we wanted, which was a all-encompassing management tool that really just told us the story of what was going on in a store when we weren't there. So being entrepreneurs, as well as having some very strong technical backgrounds on our team, we said, hey, we're gonna try to solve this ourselves. And we spent a few years really just building what we're about to show you for our own internal needs. We were growing and wanted more visibility and wanted to understand data down to the rep level. So, we built this solution that helped us grow to several hundred wireless stores very quickly, very effectively, very efficiently. We were able to be much more profitable and do more sales compared to our peers. And about 8 years ago, we started selling off our wireless stores and realized we have one heck of a business model that we can create here, which is now ReBiz, to offer this solution to other people that are in the same boat as us, that have retail wireless stores and have a need to understand more about their business to make better decisions. Fast forward to today, we're now in about 3,000 wireless stores throughout the world. We're also in other different types of retail industries, brick and mortar stores, restaurants, car washes, airports, really any type of business that has a need to monitor and understand more about their customers and employees. We have a type of solution that provides that data and that value. About 5 years ago is when our integration with IQ started. And the ReBiz and IQ integration really just kind of expands on the magic and goodness that ReBiz gives to our customers, where we take the customer and employee data that we provide and we pair that with the sales data in IQ. And what that gives you is true traffic and true conversion rates down to the employee level. And what we see now is this is the most accurate way to really evaluate performance, is to look at true traffic and true conversion. No longer are the days of whichever store and reps sold the most are our best, stores and reps. It's all about who's maximizing their opportunities. And, to be able to do that, you need to have the traffic, you need to have the sales, and that's where we take both of them, crash those two together to give you true traffic, true conversion rates down to the rep level. We also can do other things with the integration, such as compliance checks on high-risk transactions. So if you have certain types of sales you want to keep an eye on, such as maybe cash refunds or certain types of products sold, our integration allows us to flag those invoices, create different types of reports, different things you can do for viewing footage for those transactions. So that way you can kind of keep a closer eye on certain sales and certain things that are happening within your stores. To kind of get into what it is we do in our capabilities, the way I describe what we do to really try to simplify this is we're a management tool that kind of provides you with a traffic counter on steroids. And if you've ever used a traffic counter, or maybe you have one, or you've looked into them in the past, there are three components to what we do that make us very different and unique compared to other traffic counters in the market. And it starts with rep level traffic and conversion data. So we are the only tool out there that will give you traffic and conversion data down to the rep level. There are other traffic counters that kind of give you store level information, but our goal was, it's great to know data at a store level, but if we don't know the next step, if we don't know the reps within that store, we're still kind of left with the same problem, right? Which is, where is the most opportunity? Where do we need to spend our time? That's one of the problems we solve, is getting that traffic and conversion data all the way down to the rep level. I'll explain in the next couple of slides kind of more how the technology works, but one of the things we do is we identify who your reps are. That's how we can attribute traffic to them. But the other thing it allows us to do is monitor your employees outside of just traffic. So giving you an idea of when your employees are in the stores to help with things like time clock theft. Did your DMs even visit a store this week? How long was your manager in the store for? And other compliance checks we can do on your employees to make sure they are compliant with certain behavior requirements or expectations that you guys have on a day-to-day basis. That, look, you don't have time to watch the cameras all day. You can't be in a store, every day, every week, maybe even every month. We can kind of do different compliance and employee monitoring to help you have a better idea of what your employees are doing when you're not there. And then finally, we are the most accurate form of traffic counting in the market today. And kind of to expand on that a little bit more, how standard technology typically works is, if you've experienced this or looked into this, there is something they do called people counting. And what people counting is you put a camera or orb or sensor over the door, and you track how many times someone walks in or out or near that camera or sensor. And what that does is it gives you something called directional data. It's an idea of what your traffic counts are, but they're very inaccurate. They're very inflated. They count everybody as a customer. So it's really defective data. It's inaccurate data. It leads to bad decisions. And it really doesn't do anything else besides giving you an idea of what your store traffic counts are. It doesn't give you any rep level data. It doesn't give you any data outside of traffic data, just kind of a basic understanding of here's what you can expect your store counts to be. And that's where we kind of introduced and came up with our ReBiz technology, where we wanted to solve a couple of those problems. And how our system works is it's a little bit more in depth. We use cameras that are strategically placed throughout the store to do our monitoring. And to expand a little bit more on that, we don't have any high-end proprietary camera requirements. A lot of times what we see is that if you already have a camera system that you're using for video surveillance, about 80% of the cameras and DVRs that are on the market will work and are compatible with ReBiz. So most likely, if you already have that, you won't have any type of equipment cost up front. But we are compatible with about 80% of cameras and DVRs on the market today. And then how our system works is we've built kind of a three-part monitoring system that uses some proprietary AI and software we've developed, along with an employee identification process and human audits. And this allows us to do several things and solve several problems that a normal door counter can't. Number one, because we have this employee identification process, this is how we're able to attribute traffic to specific employees and get traffic and conversion data all the way down to the rep level. This also helps us solve the accuracy issue. So I mentioned we're the most accurate form of traffic counting, and several of those reasons are, number one, because we know who the employees are, we never count them as customers. So your employees could walk in and out 1,000 times a day. It's never going to affect your traffic counts. We also have human audits in place, where we remove other non-customers from your traffic counts. A few examples of those are children under 4 feet tall, we don't count as customers. The UPS, FedEx guy delivering packages, we don't count as customers. Customers that leave the store momentarily and come back, we don't recount them as a new customer. So we have all these extra additional measures in place where the data you're getting from us is going to be much, much more accurate than you would see from a typical door counter. And to kind of give you guys some case studies on that, we have a lot of our customers that have a basic door counter and just want that added granular, accurate data. So we've done some case studies to kind of illustrate that. Here's kind of one example of what we see on average, where you can see for this specific day, we counted 58 customers. Your basic door counter counted 125. Typically, we see door counters inflated anywhere from 80 to 125% is the average. And again, those are going to be the reasons we talked about, because they're counting employees, they're counting all those additional non-customers, where with the ReBiz system, we remove those from the equation. I also have another case study here that's going to expand on this a little bit more, where we took an entire dealer that we had, about 15, 20 stores, and we just looked at 2 months for December and last January. And you can see here their door counter they use is ShopperTrack. That's a very common one in the wireless industry. And we just looked at, hey, what did ShopperTrack count versus what did we count? What was the difference? And then what was the percentage? So you can kind of see all those numbers here. And a few things really stood out to us. Number one is even the variance was all over the place. Like you'll notice here, the New York store, they were inflated by 46%. The Pittsburgh store down here was inflated by 200%. So it's not like the inflation is always constant, right? And what we found throughout our case studies was a lot of this will depend on the employee behavior at a store, right? So a few examples of what might cause it to be more inflated or less inflated is, you know, if you have a store where, let's say the employees smoke cigarettes, right? And they're constantly in and out all day long, that would add to your traffic count with a basic door counter. Or maybe you have a store where it's a training hub and reps are constantly in and out, or it's a meeting hub, or, you know, maybe the DM visits that store more often, right? There's all these outliers of employee behaviors that could cause these inflation and variances to be even higher. So, you know, that's a little bit about the ReBiz technology and how it works and what makes us different. Let's get into the good stuff now. Let's get into what kind of comes from all of this technology and what you'll be able to do with the outcome, which is all the great ReBiz reports and platform we give you. So to kind of start and illustrate this, I want to go through an exercise with you guys where we, at a very high level, we look at kind of how typically a wireless agent will evaluate performance without ReBiz versus how you'll be able to evaluate performance with ReBiz. And here in this example, I just have 2 stores that we're going to talk about, Brooklyn and Cleveland. And typically when we're evaluating stores or reps without ReBiz, I'm sure you're looking at sales data. We're looking at things like boxes sold, GP produced. Obviously, you get more granular to break that down to accessory profit and other items. But at the highest level, we're looking at total sales, right? And if we look at Brooklyn and Cleveland here, and we want to just kind of evaluate these stores with the data we have in front of us, we're forced to think Brooklyn's our better performing store, right? It sold 155 boxes compared to Cleveland, who's only sold 125, produced $31,000 in GP, compared to Cleveland, who's only produced 25. So at the surface level, with only sales data, we're probably thinking Brooklyn's our better performing store, and Cleveland's where our most opportunity is and where we need to spend our most time. However, when we add in the ReBiz data, that's where the story a lot of times will change. And what I've done on this slide is I've left all the sales data exactly the same. I've just added in the extra ReBiz data that you'll start to get, which is revolved around traffic and conversion rates. And now when we reevaluate these stores, we can still see Brooklyn has sold more than Cleveland, but Brooklyn's also seen just over 1,100 customers. Their conversion rate is just over 13.5%. And they're making $27.05 for every customer that walks into their location. When we compare that with Cleveland, even though Cleveland has sold less, we can see that they've seen significantly less customers. They've only seen just over 600 customers. And then when we start to break down those conversion rates, they're actually converting over 20% of their opportunities into a sale, and they're making $41 every time they talk to a customer. So now when we kind of reevaluate this, we can look at Brooklyn and say, yeah, they're selling more, but it's really just because they're seeing way more customers. That's actually where our most opportunity is. And we now need to change our mindset. Instead of getting Cleveland to perform like Brooklyn, we need to get Brooklyn to convert like Cleveland. So our mindset and evaluation now changes where we know Brooklyn actually has the most opportunities. This store should be doing significantly better compared to a store like Cleveland. And then we can also do different things with Cleveland, that before we might have thought, hey, this store is just underperforming. It's a coaching problem. It's a rep problem. Now we're able to see they're actually doing a good job maximizing their opportunities. It's just a customer traffic problem. So now our strategy can change. Maybe we figure out how can we allocate more marketing dollars towards this store to drive more traffic? How can we use our downtime more effectively to get referrals and drive more business into the store? Because Cleveland, the traffic they are getting, they're converting. So just conceptually, this is what you'll be able to do at a store level. And then the same thing at a rep level, right? If we look at the Brooklyn store, now that we know that Brooklyn store is where our biggest opportunities are, if we do the same exercise with the reps within that Brooklyn store, you'll see kind of a similar story where here we're only looking at sales data. I have two reps highlighted here, George Spicer and Rachel Finn. You'll see at the top here, George, he looks like our superstar rep. He sold 48 boxes and produced $9,600 in GP. If we compare that with someone like Rachel, she's only sold 30 boxes and produced 6,000 in GP. So from a surface level and a sales perspective, George looks like our superstar rep. We're probably giving him all the kudos, thinking he's the greatest rep in the store. And maybe we think Rachel's one of the ones struggling. So that would kind of be our evaluation just based off sales data. But when we add in the ReBiz data, we'll see a lot of times, just like at a store level, the rep level story will change. And now when we look at George and Rachel, again, George has sold more than Rachel, but he's also seen 425 customers compared to Rachel, who's only seen 130. When we really start to break that down as to who's maximizing those interactions, George is converting just over 11% of his customers into a sale. He's making just over $22 every time he interacts with the customer, where Rachel, she's making 23% of her customer touches into a sale and over $46 every time she interacts with the customer. So now what's our evaluation? Right now, I'm thinking of this completely different. George is not my best rep. George is just seeing the most customers. And if he's going to see the most customers in the store, we either need to get him to convert like Rachel, or maybe he needs to see less customers, right? Maybe he's just a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe he needs to spend more time with customers. And we can get someone like Rachel, who is clearly maximizing her opportunities, to take some more of those customers by switching shifts and using some of the other tools we'll show you to identify maybe what days are busy, what shifts are busy, so we could properly align to make sure our strongest assets, our best converting reps, are seeing the most customers. Some of the other things that we will provide, as I mentioned to start, on top of just traffic and conversion rates, are employee monitoring. So because we know who the employees are, we will give you different reports to let you know how long they're in the stores, what time they got to the stores, what time they left the stores. It has nothing to do with when they clocked in or out. It's all based off what we saw them in the store on camera. So this helps with a lot of things. Number one, it helps with things like time clock theft. If you have a rep that clocked in for 12 hours, right? You can use the ReBiz report to see, were they really in the store for 12 hours or were they in the store for 8 hours and took a break and didn't clock out, right? Or, hey, I'm running late, punch me in. Those types of scenarios that I'm sure everyone's experienced in the past. You'll have reporting to help catch that and make sure you don't have time clock theft, make sure your reps are clocking out for breaks, people aren't punching them in and out, so that way you're paying your employees appropriately. I think sometimes even more important than that, you'll get reports broken down for this type of data at every level of your organization. So from the sales reps to your store managers to your district managers. So your store managers, if they are on salary, they probably make their own schedules and look, sometimes that's abused, right? And store managers aren't in their stores as much as they're supposed to be. And because they don't clock in or out, you might have no idea on that. And what we typically see is that store managers that aren't in their stores an appropriate amount of time per week, their stores just don't perform as well as they should be. We've been talking about this Cleveland and Brooklyn store here, and I highlighted those two managers as an example where we can see John Smith at the top. He didn't work Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, but spent a lot of time in the store on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He was in the store for a total of 45 hours, for this particular week. Where Mike Wright at the bottom of our struggling Brooklyn store, we can see he was there a few days, but was only in the store a total of 20 hours. So it's amazing, how much this goes hand in hand, where if you have a struggling store, this is one of the first things I recommend to our clients to look at. How long is your manager there? And most of the time, a struggling store will have a store manager that just isn't there 40 plus hours a week, or maybe they are there 40 hours, but they're working all the wrong days. We help you with those things to make sure not only your store managers are in the stores when they're supposed to be, but they're working the right days. They're working the busy days. They're working the busy shifts. And then same concept with your district managers. If you have district managers that run multiple stores, you'll get similar reporting that will show you what stores they visited, how long they were in those stores for. So you can make sure not only are they visiting stores and are they in stores, but are they visiting the right stores? Do they just post up at the store that's closest to their house? Did they even visit the struggling stores in their market? Really just helping you keep an eye on your reps, your store leaders, and your DMs to make sure they're in their stores when they're supposed to be. Next, we're going to show you, one of the things I'm most passionate about with our data, which is staffing and scheduling. Look, being in wireless for decades, and even though I've been out of the wireless game for a while now, and working with ReBiz, I will say one thing is constant, which is, one of, if not the most important parts of running a successful wireless business is having the right staffing and scheduling, making sure you're staffed appropriately when it's busy so you can maximize and convert those extra opportunities, making sure you're not overstaffed when it's slow so reps aren't sitting around and you're burning payroll. And then making sure your best people are working the right shifts. So often we see people that obviously want to staff and schedule appropriately, but they just don't, and some of the reasons they don't are they either just let the manager make the schedule and the manager just makes it based off of, they think Fridays and Saturdays are busy, Sundays suck, the rest of the week's okay. And they just kind of guess at it, right? And guessing at these types of important decisions are just going to lead to the wrong types of decisions and all sorts of inefficiencies when it comes to scheduling. So ReBiz steps in and we take a little bit more analytical approach to things where we provide you with data to help you project what you can expect as far as store traffic in your upcoming weeks. One of the tools we provide here is our Scheduling Advisor tool. And what this does is this looks at each store's historical traffic data to help you project what you might expect in the upcoming week based on trends. So for example, you'll see Monday during the 10 o'clock hour, we're projecting 3.25 customer groups. How we've came up with that is we've looked at this specific store during the 10 o'clock hour on Monday, over a 6 to 8 week period to kind of come up with those projections. So we're looking at each store's historical data. We're projecting what you can expect based on that by day, by hour. We're then color coding it. So who's ever making the schedule can kind of easily see, hey, red are going to be your expected busier hours. Blue are going to be your expected slower hours. So for example, on Friday, I can see it's red up until about 4 o'clock and then it slows down. So number one thing I can do is if I have extra staff on a day like Friday, I know I need it in the morning shift compared to the night shift. And then we can kind of, make sure at around 4 o'clock, we typically cut back on payroll. So that way we're not overspending and have people sitting around. The other big thing you can do is you'll see down here at the bottom, we'll also list your reps and their performance as far as traffic and conversion rates over the last month. So we talked about, things like Rachel, where you can see she's seen the less customers compared to other people in the stores, but her conversion rate's really high. So now not only can we make better informed decisions about how many reps we need on certain days and certain shifts, but we can also use this data to make sure the right people are working the right shifts. So another example of that, I'm going to go back to Friday. We know typically Friday mornings are busier. Well, who do I want working Friday mornings? Do I want Rachel, who's converting 23% of her opportunities? Or do I want George, who's working 11% of his opportunities? Well, one easy way to make sure Rachel's just naturally going to see more customers is we're going to have her work the Friday morning shift, and we're going to have George work the later shift. So she's automatically in front of more customers, which will see more sales because of that. And then George can work the later shift where maybe it's a little bit slower. He can spend more time until he gets the right behaviors to convert like Rachel and see that many customers. I look at hundreds of these scheduling advisor tools, a month. And I can tell you one thing that I see that's very constant is every store is so different. No store is the same. No store's traffic pattern is going to be the same. No store's busiest 2 days of the week are going to be equal to the next store's busiest 2 days. And that's one of the biggest mistakes we see customers that don't have ReBiz make is they just treat every store the same. They just, again, assume Fridays and Saturdays are the busiest days. The rest of the week is whatever. And that's almost never the case. Some stores, you're going to have that follow that pattern of Fridays and Saturdays are really busy. Other stores, it's going to be a random Tuesday. That's for whatever reason, the busiest day of the week. Some stores, Sundays are not going to be great. Other stores, Sundays are going to be the busiest day of the week on a per hour basis. So getting granular and really looking at everything on a per store level is just going to give you more data to make more informed, better decisions about your business. Moving on to some other things that we do, on top of just traffic and conversion data, I wanted to share with you some of my favorite things we do outside of that. I mentioned we're more than a door counter. We're a traffic counter on steroids. Our goal is to give you a complete management tool that tells you everything you want to know about what's going on in your stores, not only from traffic and conversion rates and employee monitoring, but other important things. And a few of those things I wanted to share were things like store idle time. So we monitor and provide reporting on store idle time, which is what we consider to be how much downtimes do your stores have? How many hours a day are you open where there are no customers present? What we typically see in the wireless world is that about 40% of the time a wireless store is open, there are no customers in it. That means almost half the time your stores are open, your reps are sitting around, right? So that leads us to the question of, well, what are we doing with that downtime? So not only will you have a tool in traffic counts to know how busy a store is, you're going to have this idle hours time to know how many hours, what percent of the day was slow. And this just helps with conversations, right? About, what are we doing with that downtime? I'm sure reps always say they're busy. They don't have any downtime to do trainings, to do callbacks, to do inventory, to do role playing, right? All the things you expect them to do. You remove that gray area now by showing them, hey, here was your traffic for the day. Here's how much downtime you have. We had 50% of the day that we could have done role plays, callbacks to customers to drive traffic in. It really puts that in perspective so you guys can have those conversations and most importantly, make the most of your downtime. We also provide other things like unattended traffic. This is probably the coolest thing I think we do, which is we show you how many customers come into your store and leave before a rep talks to them. So these are most likely going to be situations where I'm a customer, I walk into your store, it's super busy, I don't want to wait, I decide to leave. We track how many times that happens and show you different reports that'll let you know what days those are happening, what times of days those are happening. These are just lost opportunities, right? I mean, not only do we not have a chance to sell those customers, but we also, will lose out on things like customer experience. So reps that are not talking to customers, those customers wait a minute, they leave, they're probably not coming back, right? So the whole customer experience aspect will be improved by understanding if your stores have this issue, as well as just giving yourself a chance to connect with those customers so you can convert more into sales. And then finally, we do things like average interaction time, which is simply just how long are your customers spending in the stores. To me, this is extremely helpful for things like understanding, are we following the right sales process, right? Are your reps, do they have the right behaviors on a daily and per customer basis? If reps are following the sales process to a T, we know that they will convert a lot of customers into a sales. Well, one thing that has to happen for a rep to go through the entire sales process is they have to spend a certain amount of time with customers. So one thing this type of data will help you see is that if you have a rep that's very low conversion and they're not spending a lot of time with their customers, well, this tells us they're probably missing one or two steps in the sales process that we can identify that will help them spend more time with customers, which we know will then result in more sales. We kind of give you data two different ways. Number one is you'll get scheduled email reports sent throughout the week. We also have an online portal that we'll build for you, which you can kind of see here in the next slide, where you'll see different reports, different charts. We have anything from reports in Excel file format to different graphs and charts that will kind of help you visually interpret and see all these different data points that we've went over. So a couple of ways you can expect to get data from ReBiz is, again, through emailed reports sent throughout the week, as well as a portal we'll build for you guys to access at any time. So that's a little bit about the ReBiz platform, how it works, and some of the types of data that you can expect to see from us. I'm going to hand it over to Chris, who's going to talk to you guys about some results specifically that we're seeing. We've done some case studies recently on a few of our clients, and Chris wanted to share some of those results with you guys. So I'll turn it over to him to talk to you guys about that.
Great. Thanks, Tony. Turning now to the research, and you all are seeing the published results first here. ReBiz conducted a time phase study of 600 wireless stores, so a much bigger sampling and study that of the stores that implemented the capabilities that Tony covered here today to control for seasonality, product launches, and differing management practices. The study included participants from numerous companies that entered the 90-day study period across all 12 months of the year. To calculate the results, the final 60 days numbers were compared to their first 30 days performance. In our top three metrics, here are the key findings. By 90 days, 60% of all stores had improved their conversion rates. And for those who did, their uptick was a positive 4.29 points. About half of all stores had improved gross profit per store, and their average increase was $8,247 per month. 55% had an improvement in gross profit per traffic, and they saw an increase of $9 per visitor. What was interesting was the fact that the traffic trend for the final 60 days was roughly flat, down actually by about 3% against the first 30 days. Meaning that these study participants who made gains in profitability did so without an increase in traffic. The dollars captured were existing in their selling opportunities in their stores, as they had likely been for some time prior to the study. The total verified traffic over the 90 days was just over 1.5 million visits, a highly statistically significant sample size. And for reference, the global average traffic per day across participants was 28. Regarding sales conversions, to dig in a little bit deeper, the global average conversion rate of the study participants was 18.88%. As mentioned, 60% improved their conversion rates by an average of 4.29 points, which actually equated to an overall improvement of 33% on the conversion side. Over the course of the study, approximately half of the stores improved gross profit, and the average was 82.47. Nearly 25% of the stores improved gross profit per store by $10,000 or more per month. The process was relatively simple, as Tony's gone through, but powerful. Track performance, adjust at the store level by coaching, training, and tuning the scheduling, working at the individual rep level, getting improvements, and then continuing to optimize that over time. On the improvement front, we highlight the power of one, which is a rule of thumb that we use that shows that for every 1% improvement in conversion, which is very attainable, agents typically see a $1,500 increase in gross profit per month. And that has just some of the standard assumptions for traffic rates, conversion rates, GP per box, et cetera. That puts the average range of ROIs here well over 10x from having implemented the capabilities. As we look at gross profit per traffic, it's kind of a popular hybrid metric in that it considers true traffic, conversion rate, and gross profit on a per visitor basis. And across all study participants, the global average gross profit per traffic was $34.61. As I mentioned, 55% of stores were able to improve gross profit per traffic with an average increase of about $9, which equated to a 37% performance improvement. But through our ongoing work with clients, we can also share that some clients who have optimized for conversion with ReBiz over time have achieved kind of top conversion rates across the board and have actually shifted their focus to GP per traffic. And we have seen a handful of clients go from $40 per visitor on average to in the $60 to $70 range. It's a 50% profit improvement while already at peak conversion rates. So plenty of unlocked profits in the existing systems. We're going to shift now and through kind of the post-study interviews and ongoing work with clients. We thought it would be helpful to share some of the top factors that impact conversion rates positively or negatively. And these are the first places to look if you want to make improvements. Tony, what have we seen?
Yeah, so I think to start, Chris, these, as you mentioned, these are kind of like, for me, the low-hanging fruit, right? Where these are easily things you'll be able to see throughout our data that you can take action on immediately, starting with low converting days of the week. So typically what we see is that if a store has an opportunity to improve in conversion, it's most likely that 1 or 2 days of the week are the problem. And, typically what we see is, for whatever reason here in this example, Fridays and Saturdays are our lowest converting days. Why is that, right? Are we understaffed on those days? Is the manager off on those days? Do we have all new people working those days? Usually there's a reason if a store or stores is typically lower converting on a specific day or two of the week. The next thing we would look at is the 2 busiest days of the week. This is kind of one thing we preach, we call the Moneyball effect, where, if you're looking for a good place to start, I would always look at what are your busiest 2 days of the week, and are they your highest converting days of the week? If not, that's where you start. In this example, we can see Fridays and Saturdays are our busiest days of the week, traffic-wise, but they're also our lowest converting days of the week. So, the rest of the week we're at or about 20%, but for whatever reason on those 2 days, something's going on, whether it's a behavior problem, the wrong people are working, staffing, right? That's kind of where we still would need to figure out and take action on those specific 2 days of the week. Some of the other things you'll be able to do is revolved around rep level, right? Which we've talked a lot about this, but making sure our, strongest converting reps are seeing the most customers. So Rachel here, we already talked about, is our strongest converting rep. Well, how do we get her to see more customers? We do things like use our scheduling advisor tool, make sure she's working the busiest days, make sure she's working the busiest shifts. On the flip side, do we have a large percentage of our customers going to our lower converting reps in the store? If we have an example like Mike, where he's seeing a lot of customers compared to someone like Rachel and has the lowest conversion rate, these are things that we help you properly align to make sure your best reps are seeing your most customers. Your lower converting reps maybe are seeing less customers until they're trained, or they have other reps that can help them. Some of the other things we're seeing, unintended traffic. This is, again, where customers are coming in and leaving before they even talk to a rep. So, any days that this is happening, these are just lost opportunities, and such an easy way to see an ROI where, Wednesday, if we have 3 customers on average that are coming in and leaving before we even talk to them, you might think 3 customers one day, not a big deal. Well, 3 customers every Wednesday over the course of a month, over a course of a year, that's going to end up in a loss of a lot of different sales. So number one, identifying if you have that problem at a store. And then number 2, being able to see what days, what times you're having those opportunities. We'll help you identify those so you can take action on either readjusting staffing, or maybe it's a training issue on helping your reps deal with more customers at once. We also provide different staffing reports. So we'll get into more as we kind of roll out data for you guys, different staffing recommendations, where we can kind of tell you, hey, here's some scenarios where we feel you were understaffed. Here's some scenarios where we feel you were overstaffed. So that way you can kind of get both ends of the spectrum, right? If we're understaffed, we can take action to make sure we're staffed appropriately so we can maximize those interactions. If we're overstaffed, we can make adjustments so we save money on labor. And then finally, we saw that manager presence in store was a big factor. We have several examples of stores that were below an average conversion rate. The manager was spending 20 hours a week. They knew that. They made an adjustment and got that manager to be in the store 40 plus hours a week and saw an immediate improvement. So those were kind of the overall top 7 factors, that these types of companies were, using and taking action on to see those results. I'll turn it over now, Chris, if you want to add anything there, or if not, we can open it up for some final comments or any questions they might have for us.